So great to see you guys Friday, June 6th. Welcome to the Now of Work Digital Meetup. Sorry that took a long time to get into the welcome. We always like to welcome Tiana. We were waiting for you. Thank God you're finally here. We always like to start with the same question, which is how are you? Green, yellow, red. Green, great. Yellow, so-so. Red, not so good. Um, I am really green today, with the exception of I have no idea where the fuck I am. Oh, where?
There
Sorry.
goes our
Wh-
rating.
There goes the rating for the day. I have no idea where I am. I'm here in Ohio, somewhere in Ohio, looking at colleges, and I just asked my wife and my 17-year-old to drop me off at a place where I could do this call. And here I am at I felt like I had to buy something, so I bought a large soda at Panera Bread. So today's show sponsored to you by Panera Bread.
Panera.
Yes, exactly.
That's
Stacey,
good.
I hope that made you laugh. Bryce, that's what I said. I don't even know where I'm at. I left. I
Real?
left. I left Cincinnati, and I was visiting the University of Cincinnati. And I was visiting Xavier, and I'm on the way to Akron, Canton,
Mm.
off of 75 somewhere. So that's where I am. I think I'm in what's it called? Beaver Creek. There's such a thing as Beaver Creek, Ohio. Someone's gonna have to look this up,
That
but I think
sounds
that's where
right.
I'm. That sounds like it's not. There's a Beaver Creek not in Ohio, Jess.
Oh,
But
okay.
sorry. So other than not knowing where I'm at, I'm green.
Mm. You're going to get
How about
lots of
you?
recommendations about where to go after Panera Bread in Beaver.
Yeah, Heather and Alex just went to a restaurant called First Watch. Have you ever been to a First Watch?
Oh, I have actually really good.
Yeah, they were talking about how excited they were to go to First Watch. Well, I was having this as my nutrition here.
Well, I'm home in Minneapolis today, and I'm pretty green, maybe a tinge of yellow. I did get up pretty early, really excited to record a couple of things with a couple of people, and everything bombed. Nothing got recorded, no content today, which is too bad because there was a lot of troubleshooting going on. And anyway, but I plowed forward and went to the gym and have been working on our Ascend materials, Jason. We get to do some cool stuff in Orlando together in a few days. So I'm mostly green.
Yeah, I'm really excited for our trip to Florida. Yeah, so excited that I decided not even to come back to Minneapolis before. I'm just
You're just
going to
gonna
go right
keep
from.
driving?
Yeah. Now I'm just gonna get on a plane. So if you see me wearing the same shirt that I'm wearing today, you'll understand why. But I'm just gonna meet you there. Remember we were talking last night about should we fly together? And I know
Yeah,
you're taking your daughter, which is
I
really
am.
exciting.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna meet you guys there.
I've done it before. I've brought my kids on business trips before. Ainsley is taking this one with me, and for the first time, her being alongside me at an event, she's going to work the show. She's going to scan badges and set up chairs and greet and answer questions. She's working. And so that'll be really cool and fun for her. She's actually excited to do it. She wonders what to wear for this type of work, all of the things a 16-year-old would be asking. So it'll be fun. Hopefully, it'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, it's always fun traveling with her. I've traveled with her before, and
Yeah.
it's always good. Like if she says a few words, that'll be great. And no, I'm just teasing. No, it will be good. I'm really glad you're bringing her with.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about the keynote real quick? Because I think it's good. I think it's an important topic, and we should probably redo the keynote for this group sometime. Not the whole thing, but just kind of the keynote in general.
Yeah. So we already had this topic before last week's headlines, and it was sort of what happens when we wipe out certain types of jobs, you might say entry-level jobs. Basically, what happens if AI is as successful as it can and should be, we're going to change work and jobs permanently. And it we're not fast forwarding in that conversation enough to say, well, wait a minute, what jobs, who's affected, how does that change sort of the mid-skill, mid-tier, mid-wage jobs that, by the way, make the economy go round? Like, what happens next if this is, as successful as it can be? And of course, last week's headline, we were all quoting from the Anthropic CEO saying, oh, it's going to happen in the next 5 years. We're going to wipe out half of entry-level white-collar jobs. So this was already our topic, playing this out a little bit. We're not doing it because of last week's headline. It's a good conversation to have. What if this goes right? What happens to the shape of work and the workforce we design for it? That's our topic. It'll be super.
Yeah, I'm so excited for it, Jess, because I think that the more we can be honest and open about this, the better. I really think that trust around our employee value proposition and where do we all stand on this change, the
Yeah.
better. I really, really mean that. I was down in the hotel that I was staying at in near the University of Cincinnati, and for those of you that live in the Cincinnati area or are familiar with it, Procter and Gamble's here. And
Mm,
Procter and Gamble put out a release this morning saying that they're laying off 7,000 white collar workers in the next 2 years.
mm.
Um, and they didn't blame it on AI. They blamed it on the E word, efficiency,
Yes.
which I think was really interesting. The efficiency word, but they were hiring 8,000 people. So, but different skills. So
Mm.
when we think about this concept of reskill, upskill, and then you see that, you're like, well, maybe they just decided not to do that. Maybe they just decided to do something else, which
I
is,
think it's in our deck right now, but I feel like I should put it in there. Remember when we all got green and energy efficient and we started recycling? Like this wasn't always a thing a generation ago. And there's a phrase we used: reduce, reuse, recycle. The same thing applies to your workforce. Reduce, maybe, but thoughtfully, strategically, please. Reuse, recycle. Like you don't need to shed people in mass with zero consideration for who you need 5 to 10 years from now. Like, what if we recycled more people back into the work ecosystem based on what we think we're going to need?
yeah,
That's the sort of longer term thinking I wish we were doing more of.
I completely agree with you. And I think that one of the things that's interesting though is this might be moving too fast for that.
Yeah.
And then that's where I think that there's a really interesting discussion. And I love the discussion right now about this. Um, but at the same time, one of the things that I'm really concerned about for big companies is also they're struggling with mediocrity
Hmm.
and they don't know how to deal with this, so they're kicking the can,
Yeah.
and they're going to kick the can right out of business. Um, so I think if you ask the employee, would you rather upskill and reskill, or rather be honest with me that in the next 2 to 3 years my job's going to change, or hide it from me? I think most employees would say, let's just be honest and open and work
Oh,
through this together as a partnership instead of all of a sudden there's this massive layoff. I just think that's a really important thing to think about.
yeah.
I must have said something because my phone started beeping, uh, where people start texting me, which I love. Um, but anyway, uh, oh my God,
Ooh,
Dorothy,
this,
who's responsible for mediocrity? Dorothy, you're exactly right. It is leaders. But I hate to say this. Um,
mm,
Most leaders right now are settling for mediocrity because they don't know what to do about this.
mm,
So like it's something that's just really, really important that we address. And that's why I'm excited to do this with you, Jason, next week.
yeah.
Jess, you want to talk about your one big thing real quick? I want to get to our guest today too, but talk about your one big thing this week. I mean, it's been a crazy week. Maybe you haven't thought about it, so maybe
I
based on
haven't thought
based on
about it.
well,
Uh,
maybe I'll start.
yeah, go for it.
Or no, if you want to just do it
I'm
on the
going to
fly, go
keep
ahead.
it super short and sweet. School ended this week, so that's a milestone. I guess it's my one big thing. And I do the same thing every single year, you guys. I literally don't learn. I get all excited about the end of the school year because for working parents, that means a break. Like in the hustle and bustle and like the usual routine and the school commutes and the activity drop-offs and all like the homework pressure. And I'm always like, oh my God, we made it. We made it. And then literally the next day, I did the same thing this year. Literally the next day, I go, Oh shit, that means they're home with me all day. I do the same thing every year, but who cares? I love it. Chaos is all good. I enjoy it while I'm in it. There you go. Nice and
Yeah,
easy.
no, that's good. Well, before while you were saying that, I'd love for you all to put your one big thing in the chat also. We always do this every week. So I'd love to read one big thing. I got a new puppy. 5 a.m.
Oh,
starts for me every day. That just means Wendy's going to bug me an email earlier in the day, more often now for my time, which will be before I go to bed, basically, because Wendy's
yeah.
in the UK. But glad glad you got a puppy. Hey, Bob, how are you? Let's see, what else do we have? We have I need to see more one big things, you guys. I went to an interesting women corporate directors conference this week and met someone Jason went to high school with. Oh shit. God.
You
I
just gave
always
him
I
an
should,
OSM, not an OBT, and oh shit moment.
yeah, that is scary, Katie. We don't you don't need to tell me because it's probably
Oh,
gonna be
I bet a lot of
organized.
you, congrats, Brian. I bet a lot of you are celebrating graduation milestones. That's awesome.
Youngest high school graduation. We believe me, we're going to get to Bob in a second and talk
Yeah.
about his one big thing. I just want to share mine really quickly. Um, uh, Maybe relaxing. I like that. Oh, Tara did a webinar with me, or excuse me, she did a webinar with me, which I had so much fun on. But um, I kept calling her Tara, and she kept calling herself Coop.
Yeah.
So I can't really call her Tara, which was my biggest learning. But I had so much fun with her. Overdosed in my AI class homework. I managed to get our engagement survey data into Power BI.
Mm,
I'm getting to automate and expand on, which I think is great. Jessica, congratulations on that. My one big thing, you guys, actually, I have one big things. I can never just stick with one,
good
but
thing.
they're got the sailboat in. Steve's is so peaceful compared to mine. Um, some of you guys know that I can't stop thinking about the future. Um, and I spent a lot of time this week. Oh my God, Wendy just sent me an email now. See, I sparked something. I've been working this week on trying to figure out how to educate young people on what the world of business is going through in a way where they can apply their untainted mindset to it in a way where they can apply the innovation lens that they have, but still understand why people have a hard time changing.
Uh,
And I've come up with some really cool incubator ideas that we'll share with this community soon
mm,
around that. But really, really excited about it. So that was my one big thing. My second one big thing is for those of you that haven't seen, ChatGPT did announce their ChatGPT for business yesterday in a more formal way, which
mm.
allows you to use ChatGPT hooked up to your HR system.
Ooh, how did I miss
Which,
this?
which when because they were a little quiet about it,
Okay.
uh, but when all of a sudden you start to think about that, and you all of a sudden say, hmm,
Is right.
What could go
hmm,
wrong?
or what could go right? So when you start to think about all of a sudden the example that was used as the one big thing of someone getting their survey data into Power BI and fully automate it, what if ChatGPT just could connect to your survey data and
Goodness.
create that information that Power BI did and inherit, which it says it does, all of the same security, all of the same properties, et cetera, that your HR system has, or your finance system has, or your expense system has. So I'll put a link as soon as Bob
Wow.
talks about his one big thing. I'll put a link in the chat because I think it's something that's going to be really, really important that we watch going forward. And like I mean, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but in a snap of a finger, you could all of a sudden say, "Hey, how does that change the HR experience, the employee experience, et cetera, and how close are we to that?" And by the way, guys, I was also having a conversation with someone in Europe this morning who was asking about Jess and I and our show here, and it's like you guys are getting really popular. And I was like, oh, that's really nice of you. They're like, who pays for you? Like, does Workday sponsor your show? Does Oracle sponsor your show? They're like, well, you've been talking a lot about ChatGPT lately, and I'm like, there's no sponsors. Like, we're lucky enough if I get our ass online in order to do the show. So there's no sponsor. So when I talk about ChatGPT, if we're not sponsored by Chat, they have no idea who the heck we are, believe me. So
Right.
anyway, I just one example, but the point is that everyone's going to be thinking about that going
Yeah.
forward.
I have to, Bob, I have to read a couple of these one big things because I love them so much. It's my favorite part. Besides your daughter going to prom, I have questions. Shakti learned how to drive a tractor on a farm, was your first time in Wisconsin, and and it seems unrelated, did an AI session on reimagining work. I love the dichotomy of those two things. And Chris, my brother gave me a box of records I'd asked him to keep for me. 1970s music, dancing to Preservation Hall, New Orleans jazz as I cooked dinner, educating my 21-year-old niece as to what New Age music was. I love this. I love all of this. Bob, tell me more. Your daughter's prom.
Yeah, mixed feelings. Very anxious. It's just she's just going with a friend, but still, she's gonna be out all night. Then they're going into New York, taking a bus into New York City and doing an after prom thing, and who knows? I don't even know where they're going. So my wife's in charge of that part. I'm just trying to keep my sanity, but she's a good
Do
kid, so
you,
I trust her.
I have questions. Do you surveil your kids? Do you track them? Life 360,
Um,
surveillance?
we do use Life 360. I don't generally track her movement unless she like misses curfew or hasn't been in touch, and then I want to know maybe why, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't go overboard. Um, she knows what her curfew is, and she knows where she is allowed to be and where she's not supposed to be. So I generally trust her. So I'm not sitting by the phone tracking
Watch
her.
it.
Yeah.
I've had interesting, now that my oldest is driving and she's taken her first solo trips a few places and she's going further each time and picked up a friend the other day. Like we're testing this. And believe me, she is like pulling at the reins here. And the age of surveillance is crazy to me. I cannot even imagine if my parents had been able to track my every move, including how fast I'm going, phone pickups, crash detection. Like it's insane. And as a parent, I have to say it's a little unnerving having access to all of this data. I don't know if I like it or not. I just try to like have fun, see you at home soon, like I'm supposed to do. It's tricky.
Yeah. So Jess, one thing, and this will probably tie to the rest of this conversation, but when we talk about trust, trust in each other, trust in technology. Um, Life 360 isn't always accurate.
Mm,
Like it told me one day, like in the middle of the week, it told me like 11 o'clock that she like arrived at somewhere. I do have location settings, right? So I know when she getting home or leaving home or whatever.
yeah.
And one time it said that she just completed a drive at like 11 o'clock in the morning on like a Tuesday. I'm like, oh really? Like she's not, she's should be in class. She's a junior. She's not like she doesn't have senioritis just yet. Well, she sort of does, but yeah. So technology isn't always 100% accurate, as everyone on this call I'm sure can attest.
Yeah.
You know, Bob, really quickly, and it was going on in the chat. Dorothy said she started a Substack as her one big thing. There's some of us that are really enjoying writing more than others. And for those of us that write, and if you guys have your own place where you write and like to share things, please share it in the chat. I
Mhm.
shared Dorothy's in the chat. Please connect with her. I did actually, speaking of kids, Bob and Jess were at a different place in life. I did share my son Ben's. Please subscribe to him. But you know, just how you're wondering what your kid's doing, like I'm just going to paste it in the chat what Ben just wrote on his Substack, which scares me just as much as it should scare you when you start to think about where your kid is. 4 hours ago. Finance bros grinding 80-hour weeks for Goldman while 19-year-olds build AI agents that replace entire departments. Credentials are becoming liabilities faster than people realize.
Wow.
Yeah, Jason, I've been following Ben for a little bit. He writes really well, and people should heed this advice, right? I've been talking about it to not just educators like at the high school level actually, I spoke to the principal of the middle school as well as my board of education, the superintendent. Um, like, not only is because on the responsible AI front, I pay attention to legislation and things, and certainly that's not keeping up. But AI literacy is also not keeping up, and
Mm.
so this is a huge problem, at least in the U.S. I don't know what it's like in other countries and other regions, but this is we are really shortchanging our kids by not getting teachers comfortable, parents comfortable. These kids are capable of doing so much at such an early age. As soon as they get a smart device, which has AI in it, by the way, they should be getting AI literacy training, at least the basics of ethics and um, responsible use and maybe responsible design as well, because anyone can be a builder, right? You don't have to, certainly don't need a college degree, let alone a graduate degree, if you're just going to like build stuff. So everyone needs to, take hold of their own, agency and their own potential and start putting this to use, not just learning about it and reading about it, but getting their hands dirty and interacting with it, because you will just unleash all kinds of amazing ideas and control your own destiny.
Yeah, you guys, I mean, just really quickly, Bob, I just want to, I expand on, I think I've pasted in here before, but, Ben, my son, decided to leave US higher education and go to school, a different kind of school in Asia. And I just put a link to the link in there if you guys want to see what it is. But he's living in Singapore slash Malaysia, building. And that's the education he's going through. And he's built, people he's working with are insanely smart, much smarter than me, or anyone that I know, to be honest with you, when it comes to AI and data science. Maybe you, Bob, are smarter. But what's fascinating to me is he's working with, and someone put a link to VO in the chat earlier. I think it was Steve Jewell. Ben was actually, as part of what he has to do where he's living, he actually has to teach kids also, Bob.
Mm.
So as much as he's learning, he's asked to turn around and teach 5, 6, 7-year-olds. And he's like, just yesterday, he said this to me. He said, "Dad, I feel like a boomer." I was like, "What do you
Ah,
mean?" And he's like, "My God, like I'm trying to teach these kids, but they don't even need teaching. Like they don't have the old mindset like I do." Like he was saying, Tim, he's 20. He said they don't have the old mindset that I do. So they just pick up this stuff and start using it. They don't even think it's cool. They just think like that's just the way it is. So it's so fascinating to watch this space evolve. And Bob, I love what you're doing, and I love your hat, by the way.
Thank you.
Around everything related to AIQ. And for those of you that don't follow Bob, we'll make sure we put his credentials in there as well, because what Bob's doing is really, I I like to say, if someone actually walked up to me on the street and said what Bob's doing, I like to say it's keeping us safe while we innovate. Um, and that's not, and by the way, when I say that, that doesn't mean Bob is not an AI advocate. He's an AI advocate at the same time, just thinking about how to keep us safe. Bob, I don't know what you'd like about, if you'd like the way I described that. Before I turn over to you, the other thing I'm going to say is not everyone knows in ChatGPT or in these tools, there's something called temperature, where you actually can turn up or down the temperature as far as what does it learn, how does it relate to you, et cetera, et cetera. And I've never seen Bob so mellow as he is today. So, like, I think for whatever reason, his Bob's intellect temperature is massively high, but his tone right this second is as low as I've ever heard it. Are you feeling okay?
I'm I have this vision of like a knowledge graph, and every time you guys talk, anyone with anyone that's neurodiverse will appreciate this. You just have like 6 ideas going, and you're
mm.
trying to figure out, do I want to go in that direction or this direction or whatever. So um, I just think that thank you, Jason. My background is in enterprise transformation. So I was at IBM for 22 years and then NBC Universal for 3.5 years. So I've seen a lot of transformations. Um, and one of the things that I think people need to think about is certainly the not the focusing on the technology, but focusing on the behavior change, and that's always like the hardest part. Like, how do you motivate people? Is it top down? Is it bottom up? Is it grassroots? Do you have to identify change agents? And champions first and things like that. But all throughout my career, I did a lot of extracurricular kinds of work around innovation and idea management within a company, intrapreneurship, we used to call it. Um, and some of my proudest, moments and accomplishments were not part of any of my job descriptions in my probably dozen roles across that tenure at IBM. And so, but what's interesting is now I still embrace emerging technology and innovation, and I still get shiny object syndrome. But um, over the last, couple of years, I've really tried to learn a lot about AI ethics and AI governance and what's the right approach to technology. In fact, last week I was asked to go up to Albany um, and testify with some New York-based legislation. They wound up not needing me to go, or the meeting was canceled. I forget what happened, but I'm happy to go in and talk about human centricity and how we need to really legislate around specific use cases and not just focus on the massive frontier models and things like that, because any technology can be used for good or bad. So we've got to make sure legislation heads in that direction. So I'm at this sort of responsible use, but still want to push innovation and experimentation. So it's like this, I guess, responsible innovation is the best way to sort of phrase it.
I love
Go,
the
oh,
topic.
go ahead, Jess. I'm sorry.
Well, on this topic of AI literacy, I think it's more important than it even was earlier on, because we're sort of reaching this like mass and scale juncture when it comes to adoption, investment and adoption, and innovation is flying. And if we don't sort of like catch up to it now, it'd be very hard to. And this really is around literacy. And I really do appreciate the emphasis on the individual and agency and taking initiative, but I think it's short-sighted. I think it leaves a lot on the table. If we put all the onus on the individual to make themselves better, we assume a lot of things about access and opportunity and equity, and we assume everybody knows where to start, has support. I would like to see the responsibility conversation broaden. I think there's incredible leadership responsibility. And I kind of think about it in three buckets. It's not just the individual who has some onus here and responsibility. It's also employers, as we know, and there's a lot of work to be done there. And then society at large, and I would put educational institutions in that bucket, or they can have their own. I think you have to cover all of the buckets for this to be done well and right. If we leave it up to individuals to sort it out and find their own path, and if your job is impacted, best wishes, like that's such a mistake. That's how we're going to get it wrong if that's all we're thinking about.
Yeah, I also think so. I've said for a while that people were obsessed. I think it's starting to shift, I think, to your point, Jess, but people have just been obsessed with like individual productivity, right? Like I've
Mhm.
saved this much time, I've saved this much time, right? Like we work in teams, right? Other than maybe solopreneurs like myself, but even someone like myself, like I'm involved in communities and think tanks and all kinds of other councils and other work that's related to this. So we work in teams. So how are you improving the team effectiveness? How are you, sort of redesigning work such that you're taking advantage of the the innate, more durable skills that humans have, and augment that with AI so that it benefits sort of the greater good. Now there's a limit to that because um, I want to make sure people aren't shortchanged. Like, oh well, I'll just build an agent. I'll just build like a digital version of myself, and then the company, while I'm working for a company, well, it's their asset now, right?
Right.
And so how are you getting the credit for the value that your digital sort of proxy or your my last podcast guest called it personal intelligence. But how a company takes advantage of that and benefits from that, how is that coming back to benefit you, because otherwise this is like the latest iteration of just basically training your backfill, right? They could just stick, they could codify your intelligence, your thought process, and the um, internal sort of knowledge, institutional knowledge that you have. Once that's all codified, I mean, they could say, well, I'm already getting, 80, 90% of Bob. So like, let's have Bob go off and do other things. Like, how is the individual being respected such that their value, the value that they create, either in human form or digital form, is recognized? I mean, technically um, that's been an issue all along, right? Whether you were literally backfilling like some young person coming into your team who they can pay less, or it was automation. Let's take, 20, 30, 40% of these tasks off your plate by just writing, some Python scripts. And now with AI, where now you get like you could be in two places at once,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
So
a while back, I took a course by Section School, AI Leader in a Day, becoming an AI leader in a day. And one of their instructors, all of their instructors are fantastic. If you guys haven't, there's so many free courses, not just paid. Check out Section School if you haven't already. But one of their instructors was asked how she got into doing the type of coursework and AI instruction and stuff that she was doing. And she said, I had a kid, I became a mom, and I wanted my time back, a lot of it. And she literally, like, there's so much work happening while she sleeps, while she tends to her toddler. She's become a master agent orchestrator, delegator. Like, she knows how to design all the tooling to work literally while she's living the rest of her life. Her. That's her IP today, kind of. So I mean, I love what you're saying there, but the fact that she knows how to do that is her employer's gain as well as her own personal gain. That's such a great point.
yeah, I
And
mean,
I
like,
think,
can I license my brain back to the organization? And
Yeah.
if I can do that, do they have exclusive license?
and
Like,
Bob, a question
yeah,
that I have on this particular topic, and I have another question that I want to get to in a second, and we can put a link to the Section School piece in there for you also. It's because it's an organization that we partner with a lot that was founded by Scott Galloway. If you've ever listened to Scott Galloway on podcasts and things like that, but um, I love how Tracy said, "Oh my, OMG." Sorry. So if they could leverage your knowledge, could you leave a company and get royalty of sorts, et cetera, et cetera. And I think what's really interesting about this whole thing is, and I'm seeing it, even though it's not being talked about a lot in this way, is that this is really starting to empower the gig economy that we talked about for a long time, that didn't really get traction for X, Y, and Z reasons. Like, well, how am I going to do this, et cetera, et cetera. We're seeing companies of one person that are being built generating millions of dollars. So it's enough for people to live on. It's enough for them to have the insurance. It's enough to do all the things that they weren't able to do, quote unquote, just as a gig worker. And Bob, I have a really important bias question I want to get to in a second, but I'd love your thoughts on what I just said. And as someone yourself who've worked for big companies, and now on your own, I mean, do you think that AI will be the thing that finally gets the gig economy over the ledge?
yeah. I think it's interesting when I talk to folks in like talent intelligence and some of these big platforms where they're trying to pull it all together, like whether it's through a talent marketplace or some other mechanism. I'm not sure what the future of talent marketplaces is unless you've really thought about how it's truly orchestrating all talent. That's human and digital labor. That's internal, the contractor. It doesn't matter what the format, the contractor, the legal um,
That is such a
relationship
great
is.
point that you
Like,
just made.
yeah, like how do you pull it all together? So ultimately, this is actually part of a proposal I had right before I left IBM. But like, how do you use AI to um, accelerate innovation
Mhm.
in a human-centric way? So the proposal, if I were to summarize, it's like use AI as a thought partner to come up with stronger ideas, right? So you have better quality right at the beginning of your innovation funnel. You use AI to help dynamically build the right team composed of both humans and digital labor of some sort. How do you then use AI to identify the top potential sponsors of an idea, and then the target markets or whatever? And you can use synthetic data. You don't have to go out and scrape data and do anything unethical. You could basically create synthetic personas, synthetic data, and you could basically model the entire innovation funnel in some way. And so I do think people need to recognize the value and the potential that they have. They need to understand what their transferable skills are. And just to your point, I think this is where an organization should take this responsibility. So the last project I was working on the proposal I submitted at NBC Universal was, well, okay, here I am driving automation strategy, and I know the COO is probably looking at that as, oh my God, look at all the headcount I can cut. And I'm just like, no, 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 no. Like, I want, I'll take the win, right? Like, I'm save the equivalent of, say 50 headcount, right? I don't want you to cut 50 people. I want you to take the numeric, the dollar savings. And I want to say, like, you can bank some of it in some fashion, but I want to understand who is going to be impacted by that automation. And I want to assess them for their capacity to reskill into
Mm,
something else. So I don't want to let them go. The people who it doesn't impact, we can say, well, some of this stuff was taken off their plate. Let's move them on to higher value, maybe customer facing, activities to help with growth. Um, but for the others who are impacted, what could they have the potential to do? I mean, my outreach to some of these people was, have you ever thought about whether or not you'd be a good, software engineer or product manager or whatever? And all these hands went up. And so we partnered with somebody who came in and does that assessment. They literally pluck people off the street
mm,
from Craigslist ads. I listened to this story from one guy. He was literally flipping burgers at a fast food restaurant, and he went into this boot camp. They paid for him, gave him a stipend. They put him in this boot camp. They got him a job making, I don't know, this was probably 8 years ago. So he was making like 50 grand, bought a house, bought his mom a house. Like, these are life-changing things,
yeah.
right? And that was way before generative AI, right? Where you now have AI, the accessibility of AI is available to everyone. But again, the literacy has to be there, and that literacy has to include being responsible by design. Because otherwise, we're just going to flood. Well, it's already starting to happen, but you're just going to flood everything with these, unethical, sketchy, shiny objects that people don't know if they can trust. And trust is foundational to getting this right, even in the absence of legislation, because even legislation is going to be a patchwork all over the globe. We know this already.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of sense. You guys, I want to move on to the next topic, Bob, because I have a. Does everyone know what "duh" means?
Duh. Did you say
Just
duh?
the fact that you. Oh my God, I have to create a soundbite and a clip of that we can just
Oh,
use over
great.
and over and over. Did you see that, Bob? The way she said that? Duh,
Duh.
duh. I'm definitely going to create a meme of you on that one, Jess. That was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. So when I say "duh," I always refer to "duh" as "don't understand honestly,"
Oh.
and 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 I have a "duh" moment when it comes to this conversation, and this is not because I don't think because I'm well, maybe it's because I'm stupid, but it's just because I haven't dug into it. I haven't dug into it. So I don't understand this Workday Mobley case,
Mm,
um, and this whole concept of bias. Um, and by the way, I'm saying this is a dumb moment. Those two might not even be related. But because someone asked the question about the Workday case, I was asked by 300 people yesterday. The one person that actually asked the question was a talent acquisition person and said, I'm never going to use any of these AI tools because they're biased.
uh,
And I was like, So I'd love to get you two who are like really deep into this to
Probably been
explain
asked
to
about
me,
this
help me
10
through my
times.
help me through my dumb moment.
All right, I'll do my best to summarize the case as it stands today. It's been around for a couple of years, more than a year. Last year, last summer, it got the green light to proceed as a viable case. And recently, it got another green light to proceed as a class action lawsuit. So everybody can pile onto it. So it keeps getting momentum and attention. The case is basically originated with a man whose last name is Mobley. That's the Mobley in the lawsuit. He is over the age of 40. He is a Black man who also has disclosed that he suffers from anxiety and depression. So that's the demographic profile of the person who's filing the lawsuit. And the claim is that he was improperly eliminated from consideration for multiple jobs, over 100 job applications, auto rejected based on what he believes was bias built into the technology. And he believes he was auto rejected because he never saw a human eye, he never got follow up or feedback. Sometimes he was rejected immediately or within hours, like nobody could possibly have looked at his application more than 100 times, all of them handled by Workday. I'm not sure how they know that. Also over 40. No, they were not all at the same. So he was basically serial applying to all of these different jobs as an active job seeker. So that's the crux of the lawsuit. The claim is that bias is embedded in technology, and everybody freaking out about the use of AI or about the statement that bias is embedded in technology. It's a good question to have, but you guys, this just happens to be Workday. You should be, I've gotten this question so many times and anybody else who feels well qualified to banter on this, please weigh in the chat. And Bob, I'd love your 2 cents as well. People asking, should I audit my Workday implementation? Should I audit my tools and my systems? Good God, if you're not already making sure that you are not mitigating bias, like you should always have been asking these questions, always be self-auditing. You should have this kind of governance already built into your tools and systems. This is not a new conundrum to me. Whether or not it can be proved true or false in this particular situation will bear itself out. But you guys, this just happens to be Workday. This is a technology question that you should have already been asking, by the way. But Bob, if you want to weigh in on this, please feel free.
Yeah, I mean, there are areas of the world where the vendor is responsible as opposed to the buyer, like the talent team that's using this technology. And in the EU is one of those areas where they're looking at, these are high risk, anything decision related across the talent lifecycle is considered high risk in the EU, even like learning recommendations, right? Because the theory is that that can impact your it impacts your resume and the skills that you develop, and therefore your career opportunity, your compensation um, trajectory, and things like that. This one is interesting. I've seen a lot of debates on this on LinkedIn. I think the first thing to just clarify for everyone before they start talking about LLMs being biased, this has nothing to do with LLMs, right? We're talking about Workday recruiting. Like it's almost as old as I am.
Yeah.
So it's, the bias is checked, the adverse impact is checked against any algorithmic or autonomous system or AI. It certainly doesn't have to be full-blown AI, and it certainly doesn't have to be generative AI. In fact, I would question why you would be using generative AI, LLM-based AI for that kind of selection. And if you want to check out Martin Redstone's posts about that and why that's such a bad idea, um, he's a good person to follow. The I guess the other thing is like there is no specific evidence yet. Part of that is just because it's one of these black boxes. I mean, I'm over 40. I've applied. It's been a while since I applied, but I must have at least 2 dozen Workday, IDs from all the applications I've submitted, and I can't think of one where I did get a positive response and that I moved forward. But you know what? I don't even, maybe it's not parsing my resume properly. And that's
Right.
why there's a consistent problem, and that's why nothing's getting through. But you know what? Nobody tells me that, right? This goes back to responding to a candidate with something, anything that helps them do better next time. Because if my resume is not being parsed properly by Workday, maybe it's not being parsed correctly by, Talio or
Yeah.
Lever or Greenhouse or somebody else, right? So I'm sure there's ways to test that ahead of time, but I don't know if Mobley, did that. And I don't know if anyone who's joining this collective, I think it's collective action versus class
Hmm.
action. I forget what the difference is, um, but I don't know that anyone. I mean, technically, I could join that
Right.
collective action suit, right? Because I never had any luck either. But I don't know that it's Workday's fault, and I don't know what they do when they implement it at the customer. What kind of testing they do to make sure it's um, mitigating bias before it even gets sort of gets like reinforcement learning based on the client's historical hiring data and whatever else it does once it leaves Workday, right? So there's a shared responsibility here across um, the the ecosystem, and I think this goes to I know Jerry talks about this a lot. It's like, are we going to hold each other accountable across this ecosystem or not? Are we just going to just blindly trust people because you see their ads everywhere or because they're one of your systems of record? You're just going to blindly trust them with something so sensitive? Like, ask them hard questions. I mean, every RFI and RFP process should be appended with all kinds of new questions to ask these vendors so that you reestablish trust within your sort of talent data supply chain and all the systems that support it. So it'll be interesting to see how this particular case evolves. I don't, as much as I'm not a Workday fan, no offense to anyone that works there, but um, I don't know if I can place blame on them yet because I just don't have enough information.
Yeah.
But you guys, help me just help. Sorry, duh, times two here or exponential. So Tara just said this is something anyone that has an HR tech back, anyone in HR tech should be following. This is a huge precedent starter that will change the way we evaluate tech moving forward. I just want to like I've been in this space for a long time. Like we used to do OCR resumes ages ago. And I would never I had a great conversation on a podcast that I was recording with someone named May Habib earlier this week, who's the CEO of a company called Writer. And we were having this conversation, and she does a really good job of not talking about human in the loop, but human at the helm.
Mm.
And I really like this. I really like this human at the helm because no matter what tool we're using, we're still responsible. Like I don't, like it's just giving us data. It's still our responsibility to check the data, understand the data, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Am I missing, like, this is my duh, you guys. Am I missing something where all of a sudden there's all this that this is AI's fault? So I don't even understand. I don't even think it. I mean, OCR, by the way, is a form of AI. So the fact that we're actually saying AI is funny to me. But why? Why is AI getting blamed for this instead of
Well,
humans? Like I
yeah,
just
I
don't.
mean,
I don't.
it's
I don't. It's and Excel could give me the a wrong calculation on who scored what based on
Right.
a thing, and all of a sudden me make a decision based on that. Am I going to assume Microsoft?
Well, and Jerry put it in the chat earlier, the fact that nobody can answer the question about whether or not bias was inherent in the technology. So was my data parsed correctly, handled correctly? Was anything weighted inappropriately? I mean, those are the questions that need to be, that's why the lawsuit is moving forward, so that those questions can be explored and answered. So far, there's been no like right or wrong. It's just, is this a viable lawsuit? Yes, proceed. And so we've gotten the yes, proceed a couple of times. There's lots of investigation to be done. Sure, people should pay attention because the auditability of your workflows, how the tech is
Mm,
designed, how data is handled, at which points decisions are made, assumed by technology or validated by humans. Those are all the questions that are going to come out, I believe, in this investigation. And it's a good reminder of the design considerations you should be making when you deploy tech for human outcomes anyway.
Well, and I want to go back to something that Tracy and Frank just said, because I really like it, even though it scares me even more. When if a vendor is actually marketing that these tools are making decisions for people,
Hmm.
and that we as buyers are that stupid, sorry, to actually to take a decision like that without human at the helm, I think there's a huge problem. I mean,
Right.
we need to rethink from a mindset standpoint. What do we do? Because I've been, by the way, people vendors have been saying. I mean, some of you guys know my background at PeopleSoft. I've been saying products that have been making decisions forever, but I would never say it's the decision you should take without thinking first.
Hmm.
Is that where we're at? Where people just want a
I don't know. I
decision
don't know if
without
I agree
thinking?
with if anybody's marketing that the tech is making decisions, I haven't seen that. In fact, that's the opposite of what most are doing. And the point about allowing disposition without a human looking at anything, I started as a recruiter 23 years ago. I have batch selected many applicants because the rec is closed. Like we've got our slate, we're moving forward. No, humans do. I can promise you, as a former recruiter, humans do not look at every single application that hits the door. It depends on what stage and like where a candidate is qualified as an applicant. That's a thing. That's a reporting gate, certainly, and how you manage applicants and how you are, you're required to disposition them to follow through with status and things like that. But I can guarantee you that's always been the case where you are considered qualified and by what criteria, whether or not you've answered pre-selection questions, if you've taken an assessment. There are gates that you hit, and there's a required follow through. There's a required way to handle applicants once you've hit some of those gates. But to say that 1,000 applicants for a cashier position are all being reviewed by a human has never been a true statement. How technology handles them well through each of the stages of a process is a design consideration.
Yeah, and I love that Jerry just said HR operations needs a whole new reorg. Um, I
Yeah.
wrote something this earlier about this, how people are trusting humans more than a chatbot, and there's all kinds of things that go into that whole discussion, Jerry, about HR ops needs a whole reorg. And to be honest with you, when you say reorg, it's not just a reorg; it's a resetting of the mission, what their role is, and what role humans are going to play versus machines play, and get everyone on the same page when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Bob, anything in closing? Wow, we
Oh,
that was a
Yeah, that was
I'm
fascinating
glad
quick.
we
time.
talked about
Sorry,
it.
we
I'm getting like so many questions about this. So sorry we don't have better answers, you guys, but it's a good
no,
conversation.
I don't think that we should have better answers, Jess. I
Oh,
don't think you should. I don't think you should be sorry. I think this is all I mean, I said this about COVID. Like we're all in a movie. We're all
yeah.
making this movie together. 5 years back, we're going to look at it and say, "Well, how did this turn out?" Like right now, we're in the middle of a movie with all of this stuff, and I think that we're trying to learn what this stuff means. But I, I think it's. I'll. Sorry, Bob. I asked you to close. I'm not going to close, but I'm just going to say I'm sick of people blaming technology and saying this is why we can't move forward.
Right.
We need to move forward with governance and with discipline, just like any technology we've ever had. Bob, I'll let you be our close.
Well, I think whether it's this Workday, case, and I'm sure there will be others. Um, it just seems like we don't have to rely on the speed of the legal system, just like we don't have to wait for AI legislation to be hold each other accountable, be trustworthy. Um, it shouldn't take like the legal process for people to go out and thoroughly test
Right.
this system and say what data was it even ingesting to draw such a conclusion. I mean, there's nothing on my resume that indicates my age or whether or not I have a disability of any kind. No, there's nothing. There's no date on there that goes to the first half of my career. So what would Workday be looking at? Are they triangulated against, with other, data sources to derive and assume my age? And by the way, they're making that decision on top of everyone who's actually all of their thousands of customers who are actually doing the hiring, you're making an assumption that they don't want anyone um, who is old enough to rent a car. Like what would be the logic there? So it doesn't, people are doing research and investigating these kinds of things constantly. And so
Mhm.
just crowdsource a team of like research scientists and analysts and just go figure it out. Like I don't know, just we're not using AI to solve a lot of the problems that are plaguing um, talent acquisition, not to mention, other organizational challenges. Let's solve real problems that affect real populations who are being disadvantaged. Instead of just
Love
building
that.
more shiny objects and get the VCs to invest in something it's got that human centricity as a core mission. Otherwise, you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
I love that, you guys. That's great. Thank you, Bob, for being here.
Yeah.
For everyone that was here, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Jess, next Friday we're back on, right?
Yeah.
I can't even think about where I'm gonna be next Friday, but I'll be excited to see you. Bob, you can come on video anytime you want to, especially with that cool hat on. Oh,
Much appreciated.
is there a place we can get those hats? Do you have a store?
As soon as I get another sponsor for my podcast and Substack, I'll make a lot more hats and other swag.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, you guys. Have a great weekend. Jess, good to see you. See you in Orlando.